Hello, and welcome to this episode of Crystal Clear. Today, I have the beautiful, beautiful soul, Hallie Peilet Young, with me, who is founder and CEO of No Blues News. But beyond that, Hallie is just an amazing person, an amazing friend, and she's become one of my soul sisters on this journey. Yes, welcome, Hallie.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. What a nice intro. It fills my heart.
Thank you. So, let's start with your new project. We have a big stuff coming up. You've had a lot of life shifts yourself, and we'll get into all the details of that. But tell us about No Blues News. What is this? Is your new baby you're birthing right now, and everything coming to fruition. So I'm super excited to learn more about it. I'm actually on the board, so I know about it. So I'm super excited to share more about it with the world. Fill us in on all the good stuff.
Yeah. So, and you were probably the first friend I called, like when I decided that I was going to do this, because you're always very supportive, but I just felt for some reason, like, I don't know why. We'll get into that in our intuition, but I was like, Crystal's going to love this for some reason, I felt like. And when I called you and told you that I was doing this, and I'll get to what it is, you were like, oh my God, you were crying.
Yeah.
Because you were like, I've wanted this for so long. So for anybody listening who doesn't know what it is, it's a good news only. It's a nonprofit. It's a good news only newscast. So my background is in local TV. I've done a lot of reporting, journalism. I did it for 5 years and left partly because of all of the bad news and the direction that news has gone. People don't trust the news anymore. People think there's no integrity in the news anymore, which really is a bummer because a lot of journalists do have a lot of integrity and really just want to seek the truth and tell good stories. But unfortunately, because of bigger outlets and their slants, it gets this, people think everything is biased, even down to local news. And so I always liked the more uplifting, inspiring stuff anyway, and got made fun of it for it all the time because when you're a, quote, serious journalist, like you're doing the news of the day, like the crashes and the hard news. And people say in journalism, if it doesn't have a victim, it's not a story.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Isn't that horrible?
That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Because I feel like through my whole life journey I've tried to stay away from that victim mentality.
Right.
In every avenue. And, I don't want to say I have a hard time empathizing with victim mentalities, but I kind of do. There's one thing, you're in a crash, you're a victim of something that's big news. But I think because of that conditioning and how much it's out there and how much, and forgive me, my journalism friends, there's a lot of you out there, all due respect of all the things, it is a lot.
It's a lot.
And what I've realized in my mental health journey, and, we've shared this as well, that, positive, uplifting, like you are what you surround yourself with, whether it's what you're eating, whether it's what you're listening to,
Totally,
what you're taking in, what you're surrounding yourself with. Like we become a product of our environment, whether that's good, bad, or ugly.
It's true.
And so I have, and since I was a little girl, I remember my grandparents got the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting this newspaper anymore. There's nothing but bad news, and blah, 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 blah.
And how many years ago was that?
Oh my God, 30, 35.
And nothing's changed. Actually, that's not true. It's gotten worse.
Right. It's gotten worse because there's more outlets and there's more ways to get out there. There's, my husband reads this whole Drudge report. And I'm like, that just sounds awful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is appealing about the name Drudge?
Drudge.
And, right?
Ugh, it sounds just heavy, like sludgy.
I know. It just brings my heart down just thinking about it. So No Blues News. I'm super excited about it. Super excited to be a part of it.
Oh, I'm so excited you are.
And I have been dreaming about this, and I've said it to multiple people like throughout my life. Like, we just need good news, good positive stuff out there. I'm not a super into social media and out there too much, but on the platforms I try to post uplifting things, or if it is something that has something heavy in it, like a way to work through that, or kind of a positive spin on it. And I love that you're going to be sharing this information because there's so many great things. There's so many underdogs. And, my full-time position being in the community and community outreach and philanthropy coordinator for Bells, like we do a lot of amazing things.
You do.
But you don't see a lot of those. Not that we need the hype for it, but there's a lot of nonprofits and a lot of organizations and people in our community doing these wonderful things to help other people. And we need to hear more of it. So I'm super excited that we're going to have that platform out there and spreading all the love and all the good vibes into the world. And I'm curious though, what, as you know, I don't know if it started as a child or not. What inspired you to be a storyteller? I know that you're really big into storytelling and you're so good at it. You're very intentional, like the amount of eye contact you can make, and you're just very intentional about your storytelling. When did that all kind of develop for you throughout your life?
It's so funny because even growing up, if I'd be with my friends and they were trying to tell a story, like I specifically think of one of my best friends from childhood, Erica. Like she would start to tell a story, and even if I wasn't there, she'd be like, "Hallie, you tell it better." And like all my friends started to do that. Like, "Oh my God, Hallie, you have to tell it. You tell it the best." And it was just like kind of like a lighthearted whatever. Like I think that I do like funny impersonations of people and do good impersonations, but I've always just kind of been like the storyteller. And then when I got into middle school, I remember I went on a tour of 30 Rock in New York with my mom and my cousin and my grandma. We went to New York and we did the NBC tour, and I saw the set where they filmed today and just got this feeling like, ooh, like this could be what I want to do. Like I was so fascinated by it, like the weather and the green screen and all of it. And then by high school, I for sure knew that I wanted to be a reporter of some kind, but I didn't really know what. So then when I went to college, I studied broadcast journalism and I kind of tried every avenue. So like my freshman year, I worked for the paper and didn't love that. I didn't love the print. And then I did radio. I did a couple radio classes, audio storytelling classes, which I loved. And you can appreciate doing podcasts now.
Right.
When you're using your voice and only audio and you don't have your eyes and visuals to tell a story, you have to get so much more creative. So that's really fun. Like with your nat sounds, and if you're telling a story about animals, like you have to put the microphone up to the animal. And I remember I went to a barn and like put the microphone up to the pigs so you can hear them oinking and stuff like that, which like you wouldn't do for TV, but you have to really be creative to help people visualize the story you're telling. And then landed in a TV broadcast class where I felt like that was it. And then our final project was a package. So a package is a 1 to 1.5 minute story. You interview 2 people or so, you shoot your footage, and then you write a script and you kind of intertwine your voice with their voices. So think of the things that you can paraphrase, you say those things, and then you bring in their quotes and weave it all together. And I remember it was the most daunting thing ever. Like our project was one package for the semester. And then you get into news and you're doing a package every single day. So
That's so intimidating.
Yeah.
Like for me, who's not a tech savvy person, like I'm I'm learning a lot from this whole podcasting adventure. That sounds so tedious and time consuming.
It was so scary in college. I'm like, how am I supposed to do this package? It was hanging over my head. And then I got to a point where I was doing them every single day, sometimes 2 in one day. And just like, second nature, like knew it like the back of my hand, could write a package script in 20 minutes and have the whole thing edited start to finish in like an hour.
That's awesome.
Which is just amazing. So that was the thing about starting in local news and wearing so many hats, is that I'm so grateful for that, especially now as I start this new endeavor and I'm a team of one. I'm producing the newscast, finding the stories, shooting them, editing them, recording my on-camera part in here, actually, at MacShoe, and then going home and editing everything together in post, which to a lot of people sounds insane, and it kind of is. But I love doing it. I love the art of being challenged with like, okay, you have 20 minutes of interview footage, and how do you best write the script and condense it into that 1 minute that you get, or maybe 2 if you're lucky in local TV, and best tell the story. And it's an art, and it's a creative outlet for me.
Right. And you really have a gift for it. You really do. Like, you've done some things from some of our community partners in the past, and I was just we were all blown away by it, the interviews and the DC walk, and
that was fun.
Yeah, it was fun, and it was really great, and the way it all came together, like the guys and I were like, wow, she did a really great job with that iPhone, like with the iPhone.
Well, you expect this like whole big camera crew, and then sometimes I have a camera now, but sometimes I prefer to use my phone. It looks amazing, and you can do more and more with them nowadays. And I was even using my phone in local news sometimes because we only had so many cameras. So if somebody was out with a camera, or if a camera was broken, I'd be like, well, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to go use my phone. And people would be like, oh my God, what camera did you use? That looks amazing. I'm like, my iPhone. So it's
I love that.
amazing. And it's like,
Technology's come a long way.
oh, such a long way. And so a lot of the stories that you're going to see in the newscasts, I shoot on my phone
Right.
just for convenience sake. Like, unless I'm doing a sit down interview with someone where I need to mic them up, you can pretty much guarantee that the footage you're going to see is going to be from a phone.
Right.
And sometimes it looks even better than these $1,000 cameras, which is just wild to me.
Right. Oh my gosh. I remember when I was a kid, we had one of the big giant camcorders that like sat on the shoulder. And
That's what I used to shoot with at in local news. So you run around shooting all your own stuff, editing all your own stuff. And Jake, my husband, had to use a P2 camera, which is from like the 90s, and it weighed like 60 pounds, and had to shoulder that and shoot football on 95-degree days with sweat dripping down him. Yeah. So
it's like a good workout though. Hopefully you switch
it's a
shoulders
great
little
workout.
bit.
It's a great
Some shoulder
workout.
press.
Yeah. But I'm glad it's gotten easier.
Awesome. You know, something struck me in that conversation, and I'm again super excited for you're launching your first this week.
Hmm.
So definitely look out for the No Blues news on all of the social podcast or all of the social outlets. But when you said you walked into that room when you were in New York and you just felt it, like you felt like you belonged there.
I have goosebumps now.
You know, right.
Hmm.
So a little history about Hallie and I. So
This is what happens.
yes, this is what happens. And we're gonna go on and on. But so we met through community partners. She previously worked at The Haven, which was one of our Bell's community partners. And actually before that, we met through Scorch Community, which I went for a tour, met Hallie. It was just awesome synergy, great to meet. But then we went we went to a little breakfast by ourselves at Starbucks, and we sat down, and I'm pretty sure we were supposed to talk about business.
Yeah, we both brought notebooks and pens. I just told my dad this story on the way over here to film this, actually.
And I mean, all right, from your perspective, let's hear about that day, and then I'll tell mine.
Yeah. So I was just talking to my dad, and he's like, "Remind me how you met Crystal." And I told him the same thing, the Scorch community, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I said, then we got together, and we were like, oh, like let's get together to see how else like the Haven and Bells can partner and whatever. And I was like, oh, this will be a fun business meeting, whatever. And nothing was about business.
No.
And obviously not intentionally, but it was so much deeper and so much further beyond where I expected to go. Because I was like, oh, we could talk about charity partnerships and events and whatever. And like, I don't think we did any of that, because we started talking about, we've seen the same mediums, and we talked about our family history and like traumas and deaths and traumatic incidents and energy and vibration, like everything that you would not expect to go to for a quote business meeting. It was nothing about that. I was like,
no.
oh.
And it's interesting because, you know, since I was a little girl, I can tell when I walk into a room if I belong there or not, if I'm welcome there or not. I mean, the energy I'm and I haven't talked about this too much on the podcast yet, but I really truly believe that obviously we are all energy, everything has energy. But some of us are a lot more in tune to it than others, and I feel like that's a gift. And I feel like I happen to be one of those people that have that gift. And I've throughout my life felt like it's a blessing and a curse.
Oh, no doubt about that.
Sometimes. But I've recently really tried to embrace it. And again, from understanding some of my childhood trauma and releasing a lot of some of the dark, heavy things, it's allowed me to just become a lighter spirit all the way around, I believe, and let go of a lot of anxieties and things like that. But I've always felt, and you know, my father passed away when I was 2. And my grandmother always really instilled, you know, we have guardian angels, you have spirit guides. She was kind of raised, you know, I want to say she was Christian-esque, but more of like free spirit. My grandmother, I think, kind of added a little Native American flair.
Yeah,
So very
spiritual.
like spiritual, like more spiritual about everything. So I was raised very open.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that allowed me to stay very open and just accepting of, oh, wow, that's cool that you belong to this religion or you belong to this one or you don't belong to one at all. And, you know, I think it's great. Everyone's spirituality, I think, is very unique to them.
Yeah.
And it's allowed me to have this kind of broad spectrum and understanding that I am guided and I am protected, and feeling that in certain areas of my life. And you and I were sharing that when we sat down for um our little lunch date, and some people that had passed on in our lives and how we felt their presence, and how we'd gone to a couple of different Reiki and energy healers that gave us some really impactful messages.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Miraval, which I would love to go back with you sometime,
We're
because I
doing
think
it.
it
Yeah.
would be, and we're going on a research trip for
We're doing it.
businesses.
This is another business meeting.
This is another business meeting we're going.
Oh
But it
God.
really is, because it's you find I went all by myself. I left
Mm-hmm.
the 4 kids, the husband, the work, all the things. I treated myself to 4 days, and I dove so deep into
Mm-hmm.
the intuitive massages, the chi journeys, I talked to some psychics and mediums, and again, very open. It's not for everyone, and I
Yeah.
respect that. But the way they were leading me and guiding me, everything made so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it all really led up to, honestly, us sitting here talking about it. You
It
know,
did. I mean, everything leads to now. Like, you look back on those things, even the uncomfortable times, I feel like, in your life. And you don't just you don't just hop to a different thing. You literally move through it all. Like, it
right.
all brings you through to the next thing. And then you take pieces of that and go through to the next thing.
Right. And I feel like for me, and it, adds in a lot of the other components of this journey as well, is having the acceptance to understand life is happening for me, not to
Not to
me,
you.
and allowing me to navigate through that with accepting, okay, so this happened. Didn't really happen the way that I maybe have anticipated or expected, but that's really allowed me to release expectations on life or people or relationships, and just look at those opportunities, growth opportunities, like, okay, well, gotta hone in on this one. Like,
Yeah.
what does this opportunity have for me? And sometimes it takes journaling, sometimes it takes running, sometimes it takes all the things to get through it. But understanding that we're all being guided with a purpose. And I think what holds us back and what keeps us stuck in those patterns or those anxieties or depressive moments and things like that is not allowing is having the resistance to not allowing yourself to accept it and move through it. Does that make sense?
It's the resistance. When you said the
Right.
word expectations, I was thinking of the word resistance.
Exactly.
Yeah, because when you go into things with expectations and it doesn't go that way, the only unhappiness that we have is from resisting what currently is. And that
Right.
goes into everything. It's relationships, it's grief. Like,
Hmm.
grief is because you're resisting what currently is.
Right.
But yeah, we could go on and on and on. Basically, we met.
Right.
It was supposed to be for work, and this is what happened.
This is what happens. These are these soul-wrenching conversations we have. But it's been ironic. Like, we've had, honestly, the day I was walking, listening to a book that I recommended Hallie read, Light is the New Black by Rebecca Campbell. Love her work. And she talks about how she was living her everyday life. She was into marketing and all of this other stuff, and a very successful career. However, she felt like she needed more. Like, she felt like she wasn't being fulfilled in some point in her life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm walking and I'm listening, and I love my family. I love my career. I love giving back to the community. I love the exercise, health, and fitness aspect of my life. I got a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on in my life. However, I'm walking and listening to this book, and I just hear podcast. Like, I literally heard podcast, and I'm like, who is that?
Uh-huh. Hello.
Hi there. I know I've been asking you guys for support and guidance, because I have. I literally, it's just kind of a little something I do every day. Again, sharing the spiritual side of myself, respect it for what it is. I appreciate your courtesy.
Yeah.
I do. I take my walk every morning, or in my shower, or whatever quiet time I try to make for myself in the morning. And I say, spirit guides, angels, healers, whoever's with me today that serves my purpose well, please guide me, lead me, protect me in this day, allow me to shine my light and my love onto myself and to others, and just it's kind of like my daily prayer for myself. And then,
Yep.
whether it's in the morning or at night, I kind of go through gratitude. Like I really appreciate, um, you know, everything that happened in this day, the growth opportunities. And, that's just kind of my way that I hone into my spirituality during the day. And I think that when I heard podcast, it kind of
Uh-huh.
freaked me out
Uh-huh.
because I remember being a little kid and I would kind of, get little like, no, you shouldn't go that way, or
Yeah.
no, you should turn back. Or, I would literally get those feelings, and you just know to stop. And I swear to you, especially when I started driving when I was a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
I remember like, no, you shouldn't go that direction. Go the other direction, and just get those really big nudges and those like intrinsic, like you just know, like, nope, I'm going to go this direction. And then sure enough, like the road was closed down, or there was a bad accident on that road, or, I feel like it's happened to me so many times in my life, and I'm in awe of it every time. Have you had experiences like that for yourself?
I have. As you were talking about that, I was thinking like I've had similar things, but not in the same way.
Right.
Like I think I've always been intuitive in that way, even as a younger kid, but I don't think I knew what to call it. I don't think I knew that that was a thing.
Right. Same. I don't think I knew it was a thing until I started kind of diving a little deeper into it here recently,
Yes.
like within the past year, honestly, and
Yes.
really diving in and
Same.
and having the stillness in my life
Mhm.
to understand it and accept it. Otherwise, it was like, all right, that's a little creepy.
Yeah.
It kind
Yeah.
of freaked me out when I was a kid.
Yeah, someone just recently asked me, like, when did you, because I met Kayla
Hmm.
recently, and she's like, when did you become like so spiritual and in tune with energy and stuff? Because that's all I've ever known you as, because we just
Hmm.
met recently. And I'm
Right.
like, really not just until like the past couple of years, like the past maybe like year and a half, 2 years or so.
Right.
And now in retrospect, like the things with you driving, like some feelings that I had growing up are now making more sense.
Right.
Like now I can kind of see, like, hindsight's 2020.
Right.
Like I remember I was in high school. I always knew that and this, I don't want this to come off the wrong way because it's not like an ego thing, but I always knew that like my purpose was very great.
Right.
Like, and that's not saying that I always knew I was great. It's just I have always known that my role here would be to do something really important. And so now I feel like as I inch closer to this dream and, have taken a couple leaps, like I leapt after news to go to a nonprofit. And then I leapt leaving that job to start this foundation and this company. And now I feel like I'm getting to what that was, like what that feeling was. And it really is just this impact that I'm trying to make of helping people realize that we need more goodness and trying to get the right people involved to be part of it. And honestly, recruiting you for this movement was a really big start of that because,
I'm gonna cry.
oh, me too. I mean, me too. I cry about it all the time.
Happens.
This is what happens. But I was seeing a therapist who I didn't like and kind of broke up with her. And I started seeing this intuitive coach, and he's
Mhm.
incredible. His name's Terry. I love Terry. And I remember as I'm starting this new journey and kind of navigating, like, do I leave my job? Do I not? How do I leave all those things? He's like, you need to surround yourself with people who want to see you win, and surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up and bring good energy. And I was like, I'm gonna call Crystal.
Oh, okay. So now
Yeah.
I'm crying for lots of reasons. Because I do genuinely love to see the good in other people.
Hmm.
And I think that was one of the reasons we connected, is
Hmm.
because I could see that in you. And let's just be real. Not everyone is like that.
Unfortunately, no.
And I don't think that that's their fault. I think that it's a lot of societal pressures and just kind of false senses of self and, egos. It's the ego gets in the way for one matter or another. And
Hmm.
I think that we all have the ability to be that way if we choose to be. So I'm very honored to be a part of your journey in that way, and that you thought to call me. And because I really, like yourself, I've known since I was very young, like, I'm going to do something in this world. I don't know what it is,
Hmm.
but something is going to be special. Like, I want to help people. I want to And I noticed that even in my family structure when I was a kid, like I'd sing and dance and be silly. And like I noticed like I could shed light, and it's like, okay, well, I have the ability to shift the energy in the room. And I noticed it's very young. And I think I obviously went through some phases through adolescence and growing up. And, everyone goes through their dark days. And I lost that a little bit, I think, coming and going. But I always felt that intrinsic motivation inside that everything's gonna be fine. Like, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
I was never, and I've mentioned this in another podcast, like I've never really understood because my Nana, my grandmother who raised me,
Hmm.
she had some depression when I was growing up. And she'd lost my father, she lost my uncle. She got married when she was 16 years old. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. But
Yeah.
and I think realizing now at 38 that when my father died when he was 22 and I was 2, I saved them just as much as they saved me by raising me, like me
Absolutely.
being there and giving them purpose through that
Full
time.
body
And
goosebumps again.
right.
Yeah.
And knowing that. And so I remember going through phases being like, why can't you just snap out? And she was sweet and she was fun and she was goofy. And I just never understood
Hmm.
that aspect. And obviously it's chemical. We know that, to a degree. But what I did love about her is she could always, have these little cards that she gave me, and they're by my bathroom sink, and one's like, always remember how much you're loved.
Hmm.
And on your darkest days, it's not, weathering the storm, it's how you grow out of it. It's seeing the light in everything. It's knowing that you have a bigger purpose. It's knowing that there's a bigger plan. And I think no matter what type of spirituality you have, that's really the key, is knowing that there's something bigger and there's something better and there's something greater inside all of us. And it's like that light, that eternal light and that unconditional love.
Yep.
And I think as long as we can tap into that and have that intrinsic confidence, like that's where true confidence comes from my perspective,
Yep.
for myself. That's how I've been able to be like, you know what? It'll be fine. And knowing and having the integrity too. So I'm always one of those people, and I say this to our teenagers all the time. Who you are when no one is watching says a lot about your true character.
So true. It's so true. I see it all the time. Like, you often see like the cart analogy used a
Hmm.
lot, like putting a cart back at a
Hmm.
store. Like you're going to your car and the cart's next to your car and no one wants to take it back to the cart return.
Oh, I do. I take them all back.
Me
Like
too.
I start working at Publix when I get to the parking lot. The carts are everywhere. Like,
Yeah. And obviously I take it back, or even something like, you're at a store and you're looking through a clothing rack. And I remember always feeling this as a kid. Like you're at a store and you're looking through a clothing rack and like something falls off a hanger.
oh, you got to pick it up.
And I would have this feeling like I have to pick it up.
Yes.
And
Oh
so
my
many
God,
people
me too.
and so many people are just like, whatever, leave it. And I'm like,
Oh, I
I
can
have to,
never.
or like there's gonna be like a karmic imbalance.
Oh my God, me too. Like someone's watching me. And it wasn't Santa Claus.
No, it's not Santa Claus. I'm Jewish, so it definitely wasn't Santa Claus. But even to this day, like I still am that way. Or that's the best example I could think of. Like something falls off a hanger and I'm like, I have to pick this up.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm like scared of something bad
No,
happening.
I
It's
want it
just,
to look nice. Like I want it to be the way I left it, or even better. And I think that's how my life motto about people, places, things. I want it to be better when I leave it than it
Mhm.
was when I found it, and not better in a way that it wasn't great before. But I just want to leave
Feeling better.
Yes, I just want to
Mhm.
leave light and love and goodness, and whether that's going to an event and spreading love and joy, or going into my kitchen and cleaning it up before and making sure it's nice and clean when I wake up in the morning. Just the little simple joys in life. If I um leave a hotel. Okay, so I'm that person. You go to a hotel room.
Yeah. Let's
You
hear
know?
your weird thing. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm the hotel person
Yeah.
that cleans the hotel room before I leave.
Oh my God.
Like just making sure the trash is in the trash and
I
the
do
bed's
that, yeah.
made, and the towels are all in one pile. And
Yeah.
I want it to look neat because that's a representation of me.
Yeah.
And then God forbid I go into the kids' hotel room and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, no, you can only represent yourself here.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've learned is I cannot put a ton of my energy. So this has been a good boundary setting for me in this stage of life, is
Mhm.
setting a boundary on how much of my energy I put towards helping other people shine their light.
Yeah.
and kind of make it, because I've found myself throughout time kind of shifting towards oh, I can help you do this and I can help you do that. But then you get run so thin.
Yeah.
And then I feel like I kind of lost myself in that a little bit. You know, there was a few years when my husband and I blended families, and
Mhm.
I kind of left the fitness world for a while. And not left, but I was still coaching, but not as, as in depth as I was. And before I started working and doing the full-time philanthropy stuff, I was just doing things here and there, but there was a time period where I wasn't doing a lot and I felt so lost and
Yeah.
unpurposeful. And it's like, I love my life. We were traveling. I had these beautiful children. I had to do more. Like, so that's when I got more involved in the philanthropy stuff and the events, because it just felt so good. Like, I guess I'm just a social butterfly anyway. So just being around people, they're doing good things.
Mhm.
And I think that that's one of the reasons I love you so much, is like, you're just one of those people. You really do enjoy. I've never heard you say anything bad about anyone. And I think I've totally grown out of that stage in life,
Mhm.
that we all kind of go through. And, you know, I don't participate in the gossipy stuff. Like, I just can't. Like, if I
Doesn't feel
have,
good.
it doesn't feel good,
Mm-mm.
and I guess I kind of look at it now from a different standpoint, a different lens, since I've done all this trauma work, is I wonder what their childhood trauma was like, or what their generational trauma was like. And I mean, their parents probably like, or their, you never know. Everyone has a story, and you never know what someone's gone through. And so that's why, I went to Smoothie King yesterday, and
Oh, I love this. I love
someone
this.
wrote on my cup, "You're special." And they wrote YOUR special. And I literally shed a tear, because that was
Mm.
so sweet. And I didn't give a damn if they spelled your, not you are,
Right. I
And
did
it's
see that,
like,
and that was the first thing I thought.
I know.
But
It was exactly that. So many people replied, like, "You are special."
and you're like, that's not the
Crystal.
point.
It's not the
Sorry, I
point.
kicked you.
And I was like, honestly, I'm going to bring this up on the podcast tomorrow, because it's so
It
true.
was
Like,
so sweet.
and I probably go there every day after,
Yeah.
after my workout. But it touched my heart. But then again, you do want to kind of help them and be like, "You are." Like,
Yeah.
you
I
are.
know.
But it just, I don't know, those little gestures. And
Mhm.
so when I got that, I asked them if I could pay for the people behind me, because
Love
I
it.
like to be that person too.
Love it.
That happened to me one time, I think at Chick-fil-A. I was getting a big order for the kids, and I think it was like $30. Chick-fil-A is not cheap. And the person in front of me paid for our order, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And so I paid for the person behind us, and it was like $5. I'm like, "Okay, can I pay for 2 cars then? Because I feel like I need to make up for the 30."
Yep.
And I just feel like the more little gestures we can do like that to just spread the love and spread the kindness, it just makes me feel so good.
Yeah, I remember the day that Jake proposed, which obviously I didn't know this was happening, but that during that day, I went to Starbucks, and this was right after, like, all the riots, and police were getting a ton of hate. And Sarasota Police Department is just awesome. Like, I had a
Mhm.
stalker at SNN, and they took really good care of me. And I was pulling into Starbucks, and I see a Sarasota police car pulling in. And we were kind of like, one of us could have let the other go, whatever. And I made sure I let him go in front of me, because I wanted to get up to the thing and say, "Don't let him pay. I'm paying for the
Right. Right.
policeman." So I did. And she's like, "Okay, no problem," after I ordered the speaker. And I pulled up to the window, and she's like, "He already took care of yours." And it was like the most
How do you do
beautiful.
that if you're in front of him?
I think he had said coincidentally to the person, "I want to pay for the person behind me." So we literally just paid for each other.
Oh, so he was in front of you. Okay, I was picturing
He
you
was in
trying
front of
to
me.
get in
So I
front
was
of him.
like,
Okay.
I was like, "Don't let him pay. I want to pay." And they're like, "Okay." And by the time I got up there, they were like, "He actually wanted to pay for you." So we literally bought each
Aw.
other's coffee. It was like the most beautiful example of just instant karma.
See, and I love that. And I do
Yeah.
believe in karma. So my daughter, my daughter is so funny, because my husband and my ex-husband actually have a tendency to, you know, get on the road and get a little shifty with
Yeah.
lanes.
Yeah.
Matt's actually gotten much better. So
Yeah.
Tatum always, she's like, "Mom, you are the nicest driver." I'm like, "Why do you say that, Tay?" Because, I have a tendency to get where I need to be going. So I'm not always
Yeah.
the slowest driver.
Yeah.
But she's like, "You always let people in.
You let people
You let
in.
everyone turn. You let everyone get into the lane." And I'm like, "Honestly, Tatum, I haven't always been that way."
Yeah.
When I was younger, I had a bit of an ego. I had a fast little sporty car, but I just felt like a jerk.
Mhm.
Like, I felt like if I didn't let someone in, guess what? And 2 days later, I'd get a ticket. Like, it was like that karmatic energy that I'm putting out there. So now, and one of the big things that really helps me is, we live in Sarasota.
Mhm.
There's a lot of older people driving. There's a lot of younger people driving. And
Mhm.
there's everything in between. I always pretend like they're either a 15-year-old that doesn't know where they're going,
Yeah.
or they're like 85 and they can't turn their head.
Yeah.
And so even if I can clearly see that they're a, middle-aged person that's cutting me off on purpose, I just pretend
That they're
that they're, and maybe they just really need to get somewhere. Like maybe someone's sick. Maybe, I always try to think of, give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes
Yeah.
to the driving. And it really, I can drive. I'm actually looking forward to taking my kids on a little road trip. I love driving because
Yeah.
of that, because I've kind of conditioned myself to just not personalize it. And I think that that's something, not with just people driving, but just people in general. And this whole intuition thing and the karmatic stuff, like just not personalizing other people's energy, I think
Mhm.
is huge.
Yeah. Well, you said something on your
Um,
first podcast that when you said about when it comes to personalizing things. Like I literally there was one part of your podcast because I was listening and I literally was like, "Oh my god, yes," out loud in my car. I was like, "Yes," because it reminded me of me. Like I've always taken things so personally. Like you talked about if your partner's having a bad day,
yeah,
and you automatically assume like, "Well, what did I do?"
right.
And I love how you say that you tell your kids like, "Hey, if I seem short or whatever, I just didn't have a great day.
Hmm.
You didn't do anything." And I would have loved for some, like my parents are the best, but like, if my mom was in a bad mood or whatever, like I maybe unconsciously kind of personalized it.
Hmm.
It's just nice to have that. Like you recognize that and then you can give them that peace of mind without them even having to go there and worry about it.
Right. And I try to get upfront with that because,
Yeah,
again,
that's
I've
such a
been there,
good
done
thing.
that, whether it was, like I mentioned, my grandmother, she would go through some emotional highs and lows.
Mhm.
And I always think, like, was
You're
it
like, "What
me?
did
Is it
I
because I
do?"
didn't clean my room? Was it because I didn't do this? Because, and
When in reality, 9 times out of 10 it has nothing to do with you.
right. And then my
Yeah.
mom, I mean, there was 7 years of my life when I was, 14 to 21 where I chose not to speak to her. We have a beautiful relationship now, and she's like one of my best friends. And it's been a really great transformation. I'll have to have her on sometime. But I told her when I was 14 years old, I'm like, listen, I am going to have to take a break from life with you. Like, you are not in the position to parent me the way I need to be parented. So, if I continue to allow this push pull in our life, it's not going to allow me to own my stuff.
Mhm.
I knew that, and I didn't really say it that way. I wrote her a really long
Yeah.
note and left it on my grandparents' door for her to read.
Yep.
But that was my intention of
Mhm.
listen. And now I look back at that movement I had for myself. I mean, it's totally true. Like she was then able to do and process what she needed to go through in her life. And I was able to process and go through things I needed to go through in my life.
Mhm.
And now here we are many years later, and we have a beautiful relationship because I set boundaries, and
And thank God you did.
right, and she allowed me that space too, though. And there was no, even with her highs and lows and the stuff that she went through in her life, there was no projection onto me,
Mhm.
which I really appreciate because, I feel like as an empath, as an intuitive person, you really gravitate. Some narcissistic personalities can come your way, and it's really, really tough
Oh, yeah.
to navigate those people, whether they're peers, spouses, siblings, parents. I mean,
Mhm.
it's hard
It is hard.
when, the projection is there and the accountability isn't there. And I think that, or I know that for me in my journey, like I said, the acceptance, but the accountability is huge. So I can walk into my house and be like, listen, like it's been a day. Brody, our little guy, he's having some moments. Like I need some time and space. And we're at a place now where Matt's really, I can he's like, okay, got it. I got him for a little while. And knowing that he needs that space too,
Mhm.
and just like our kids, they need that space. I remember being 13 and trying to put myself, I guess I'm one of those people. I always try to put myself in other people's shoes too. Like, okay, well,
Oh, yeah.
what was I doing when I was 13? Like, if I had all this technology and these headphones and all this cool stuff when I was 13,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I had my Walkman with my CD player and whatnot, and I was doing my own thing in my room. They just need space and time.
Mhm.
And allowing people that space and time so we don't personalize
Yeah.
and teaching them boundaries too. Like we had an incident this past week when my older bonus son, he had a incident with a family member, and there were some things said, and he's like, I'm sorry. I'm setting some boundaries and I'm going home, and and I was really proud of him. He used his voice,
Mhm.
and it really made me feel good and made me realize that they may not always be super involved in these types of conversations, but they're seeing the behavior modeled.
Mhm.
And I think for them, that's huge because that's something generationally hasn't always been a thing. I mean, if you think, you know, children should have been seen and not heard a couple generations back. And, it was just a very different dynamic. And I think that we're a generation that's really empowering our peers and our youth and, everyone to just own their voice and use their voice more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I feel so incredibly grateful that my parents always allowed me to use my voice. And now look what I'm doing with it.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what gave you that intrinsic motivation all those years. I mean, your dad is the cutest
I
freaking thing.
know.
I mean, when
I
he
know.
announced you at the No Blues, I mean, he is just
Uh,
your biggest number one fan,
he
and
is.
you can tell you definitely had that like number one, like just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Eh,
Unconditional support. Like
Yes.
if I studied broadcast journalism and worked in Sarasota and made $24,000 when I started in news without the help of my parents, I mean, I would have been living off food stamps.
Right.
Like, I know some reporters and anchors who started in the middle of nowhere because that's where you have to start. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just fortunate enough to end up here,
Right.
um, who literally were going to the food bank because their families couldn't support. I mean, they like
Right.
emotionally supported them, but they
Right.
couldn't financially support them. And my parents paid my rent until I was done with SNN
Yeah.
because I couldn't have lived here and done that
Right.
without them. So, yeah, they've always totally encouraged. I mean, they watched every newscast. They're so excited about No Blues News. They're so excited to watch it and share it. And they're sending it to all their friends already. And I had my past life regression and the chakra healing with Bond, who you connected
Yes.
me to, who's amazing. And she was like, "Whoa, your throat chakra is wide open." I'm like, "Yeah, that makes sense."
It does make a lot of sense.
Yours is probably pretty clear too.
Mine was pretty clear. However, apparently I've been strangled and
Yeah.
drowned and all kinds of other things in
Yeah.
past lives because
Yeah.
of using my voice. So I feel
Uh-huh.
like that's one thing that was interesting because I did a past life regression trauma session as well.
Mhm.
And it was interesting because all the things she mentioned really brought up the reason or like to me, a reason why the PTSD would be there
Yep.
because it's like that deep soul conditioning. Like it's
Yes.
survival mode. It's that soul conditioning for survival. And I just find that super intriguing.
Oh, it's so amazing. And I asked her too, because same thing with me. Like all of
Yeah.
my deaths were super traumatic. Like I fell off a mountain and I got stabbed. My whole family got stabbed, and I was hanged for being a witch. Like all these things, which that last one did not surprise me at all.
No.
But I asked her. I said, Did you ever read anyone and they just lived like a normal, ordinary life and then died of old age in their sleep?" And she's like, "Only one time ever." And the woman who I did it for is probably like one of the unhappiest people I've ever met
Oh,
because,
that's interesting.
yeah, because she said, when you live an ordinary life, like we don't learn anything.
Right.
Like you don't learn any lessons without those traumas. She said, we don't just wake up and say, "I'm going to be better today." It's normally because of something really horrible that happened. So
Right.
if we get to, God willing, like go that way in this lifetime, it's probably because of all the stuff that we had to endure in other lifetimes. Like we got to the point where we learned our lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And so, go through those things and then you graduate them so you don't repeat those things. And then you enter each new life with this different perspective. And it was funny. Brian Weiss, who wrote Many Lives, Many Masters,
Yeah.
I went to his session at the Hay House conference, and he compared life to being like one big schoolhouse classroom. Like it's one
Right.
classroom. And then he's like, then you have people who are like 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And then you have like your first and second graders. And the first graders are the people that you see on the news all the time. Like not for good
They're
reasons.
learning their lessons like loudly, and that's okay.
They're learning their lessons. And, like the first graders are like the Florida man that you see,
Right.
which, by the way, I want to start a segment for No Blues News called Florida Man eventually, but it's going to be like a Florida man who did something really amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like
I love that.
turning that around.
Flipping it around.
Yeah,
So.
like look at the Florida man who raised all this money for underprivileged kids, or
Right.
instead of like the Florida man who committed a murder-suicide in a trailer park and
Right. It's crazy.
ran naked in the street.
Right. Oh, Florida. I was born and raised
Florida.
here. You gotta love Florida.
Well, especially like I'm the only one out of like my friends from growing up, my family who lives down here. So, and everybody else is in Chicago. So obviously it's like two very different
Oh, it's totally
political
different worlds.
landscapes.
Like-
yeah. Everything.
So they always ask you for crazy stories. I mean, I guess they get them anyway, but
Crazy stories. But then also like during COVID, they just could not fathom that I was just living my life,
yeah,
like I never had to work from home. I mean, we
yeah.
went to work every single day because media were essential employees. We were
Right.
classified as. So I never worked from home. So I feel like my experience of that time is so different from most of the people in my life.
Same. I mean, I was 8 months pregnant when the world shut down, so I floated around in my pool.
Yep.
And I do remember a couple times wiping my groceries down with Clorox. Like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Like I really think that the amount of chemicals and plastics we were exposed to during that time period probably put a lot more detrimental effects on our health than some of the other things. But
Totally.
that's a whole other.
Well, when you think of
realm.
something like that, when you think of like the toilet paper shortage and everyone
Right.
going nuts over toilet
It's all
paper,
crazy media stuff.
it doesn't do any favors for the journalists who are out there just trying to do good stuff. I feel
Right.
like 2020 was the time that the media shifted like that and people started to not trust, because now you look back and they should have just said, we don't know. Like, we don't know
Right.
if wiping down your groceries will do anything. You can if you want. Like, everyone was just saying this as if it were fact. And then, of course, not that long after, we learned that you can't get COVID from a surface.
Right.
So,
like it's
right. And now you, of course, as a result, have all these people who don't trust journalists.
right.
And journalists have a really hard job. Like, I have a lot of local friends in local journalism too,
Mhm.
and who are in cities all over the country, and they do such an important job. And that's something that I plan to emphasize with No Blues News too, is that I am not knocking what they do at all. It's very important, and it's
Absolutely
important to be informed, and but then there's so much other stuff that comes with it, and I'm not ever trying to replace the news with No Blues News. Like, that's important, and this is important for different reasons. I'm not comparing the two. I'm not saying you should watch this instead of that. Like, you should support your local journalists.
Absolutely.
But this is just going to be that safe place where you can come and okay, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is, I don't have to worry about politics or bias or controversy or fear or sensationalism or whatever it is.
Just all warm and fuzzy.
Warm
great
and fuzzy.
Stuff. I love warm and fuzzy.
Yeah. And there's so much of it. There's so much of it here where we live, but really everywhere. So I'm really planning on doing it everywhere. Like,
I was going to ask you, are you planning on traveling? And I mean, I think we should, I want to go. Like,
oh,
can I
for
tag
sure.
along? Like, I'm officially a board member. I mean, come on.
I mean, absolutely. Yeah. It's a work trip. It's a work trip.
It's a work trip.
Yeah.
But I mean, and this is incredible though, because I think people get so lifted and inspired by people wanting to hear the great things they're doing. And again, not from an egotistical standpoint. It's just wow, I was recognized for those great things. And sometimes that can be uncomfortable. I've chaired a lot of events and stuff like that. And sometimes it's uncomfortable being in the spotlight because it's like, well, it's not just me.
Oh yeah. I've put you in that discomfort a bunch of times because I love to recognize you. Yeah.
But it's like, it's not me as an individual. Like, I am the individual and the face of a great company that's able to do, and a family behind that. And, it's just, and a lot of the other things, but but I love it. I do love it deep down because it makes me feel so good to know that I'm a part of this great greater good of helping others. And I think that we can all do that,
Mhm.
whether it's, paying for someone's Starbucks behind us or in front of us, or,
Mhm.
complimenting someone when they do something nice or for no reason at all, or just saying hello.
Mhm.
Like, I feel that's kind of like an all lost art, saying hello and good morning and have a great day, and
Yeah.
holding a door. I think that those are little things. I don't want to get lost in this. We're very connected to our technology sometimes, especially
Yes.
out in public. And just bringing back that person to person connection, which I personally thrive off of so
Oh, yeah.
much.
Yes. Same.
And again, something that I'm trying my best, and it's kind of like pulling teeth sometime to instill in our teenagers.
Yeah.
3-year-old, he's easy, but
Yeah. Yeah.
for now anyway.
Yeah.
But just having that, our oldest son works at a restaurant, so he's like, I have really awesome conversations with people all the time. I'm
That's
like, this
great.
is so good for you. Like, it's so good to have those in-person conversations and those connections, and not to be behind our screens all the time. And so that would be something. So coming off of all the beautiful things we discussed today, if you have like 3 great little tidbits to put out there for the world, what would they be? And I could go first if you want, because I'm thinking I'm fine.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, so I would be to challenge our listeners to say your affirmations every day,
Mhm.
whether they be like your I am statements, your gratitude statements, calling on your angels, spirit guides, whatever it is that you believe in, but expressing some sort of gratitude and appreciation for yourself and or others.
Yep.
Maybe doing a kind deed. Like, there's one little calendar I saw, I forget where it was. But it was like a whole month, and it was like, open the door for someone one day, buy someone a coffee the next day.
I love
Like,
that.
I love that. I'm like, that could be a fun little calendar just to keep up in the house and inspire, just put out on social media sometime. So those would probably be my two, like doing an act of kindness, either
Mhm.
for yourself or others, and then some positive affirmation for
Mhm.
yourself or others.
Yeah. I would say my biggest one, I guess, as it pertains to what I'm doing is be very careful of what you consume.
Right.
And, like you said, you are what you eat. You are what you watch, listen to, who you surround yourself with. And when you see a story of somebody doing something good, those stories do a couple different things. The person who the story is about, it makes them feel good and recognizes them, like you said, for doing a good thing. But then for the person watching, it inspires that person to follow suit and do that good thing too, or to do something similar because you're like, well, they did it. I can do it. And I guess just imagine what it would be like if everybody did something like that. And it
Right.
doesn't have to cost money.
Right.
If you can't buy someone a coffee, hold the door open for them when you're walking
Right.
into the coffee shop,
Right. Or just say hello.
or say hello or compliment their nails or their outfit
Mm-hmm.
or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take a lot, and it goes such a long way. And if we just turned one complaint a day, I would say, into a compliment or a small act of kindness, there would be an energetic shift in the world so great that we wouldn't even know what to do with it.
I mean, clearly we're going to save the world here.
Yeah.
Like, we clearly are. And hopefully,
We've got it all figured out.
hopefully this is all, I hope it really does inspire people, because everyone can think
Yeah.
of something that's motivated them to do a kind deed or made them feel good inside, and just spreading that. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is accepting what's in front of you and releasing the resistance, and just holding yourself accountable in those moments as to how can you be a part of this greater good that we're trying to spread, all the love
Mhm.
and knowledge, and just the kindness, just spreading the love and the joy.
Yeah, and if you find yourself unmotivated, I guess, to do it for someone else, then do it for yourself because you know what you
Absolutely.
put out there, you're going to get back.
Absolutely.
So if that's the motivation that you need to use to do it, then that's okay too. The end result is still the same.
Right. And we're giving you permission. So you now have our permission
Yeah. You have our blessing.
to release yourself from this podcast
Uh-huh.
as we conclude here, and do something great for yourself, or look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I really love you. And you're really freaking awesome. And we're going to have a great day.
Yeah. And just imagine the difference that could make if we all did that every day. I could be better at it too.
Yeah. All right. Let's go do
Yeah.
it. We're going to do it.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Hallie, I love you. We could talk for 4 hours.
I know.
We're like, we're there.
They're going to run out of memory. Yeah.
Seriously, that was really great conversation. I'm looking forward to many more and so excited for everything No Blues News and just all the things. Thank you so much.
I'm excited for Crystal Clear. I love you.
Love you too.